welcome to another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevent, and today I'm very happy to be coming to you from the Insight Treatment Center here in Santa Clarita, California. And I'm also very happy to be here with Carissa Provost, the clinical director here at Insight Treatment. Carissa, it's nice to meet you. I'm Greg. It's
Nice to meet you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for sitting down to do this.
Of course.
We really appreciate it. So, if you could tell us a bit about exactly who you are and what the clinical director here does.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Of
And
course.
yes, so a bit about me. Like you said, my name, clinical director,
Yes.
licensed marriage family therapist.
Okay.
And so I'm the clinical director of this location here in Santa Clarita
Cool.
and also our El Monte location. And so what that job entails is
I was about to ask.
right.
Yeah.
Multifaceted, really overseeing the clinical work that
Okay.
our therapists do here with our families. And we see adolescents from about 12 to 18, give or take, and their families who are struggling with mental health related issues and or substance abuse related issues. So,
Okay. I heard you say a little bit about the oversee the clinical work. If
yes.
you could tell us a little bit more in depth about what you mean by that, the clinical work here that you
Sure.
oversee.
Sure. So we're an intensive outpatient program.
Okay.
Oftentimes when adolescents or families find themselves in therapy, it's maybe once a week.
Yeah.
We're intensive, which means that the teens are here 4 days a week starting out.
Oh, wow.
And then they drop down as they progress in their treatment. And they're here for about 9 months to a year, give or take. So the therapeutic work entails therapists who are here providing the direct service, which is individual therapy sessions, group therapy sessions, and family sessions.
Okay.
And then we also do parent groups and multifamily groups. So
Wow, that is a lot.
it's a lot.
That really
It's
is.
a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So I mean, I couldn't help but be struck when you mentioned, mental health.
Yes.
And it's and I was wondering, it just seems like, I mean, obviously it was, you'd always hear about mental health and people trying to improve their mental health, but it's only become so much more prevalent in
Right.
the last so many years.
Yeah.
I guess if you could tell us a little bit about what you're necessarily seeing more and more in terms of mental health, maybe some concerns you're seeing, some issues, and how, you folks can help them, that kind of thing.
Sure. So we see a lot of different types of presenting issues when adolescents and their families come to us.
Okay.
Several years ago, we were predominantly working with teens who are struggling with substance abuse. Now we are seeing much more mental health related issues, or exactly what you were describing, Greg, that it's more prevalent or people are seeking services more. There's less stigma, which is great. It's still out there, but it's still there. So the types of things that we see are garden variety issues such as depression, anxiety, those typical types of issues, but where families might have tried outpatient therapy and it wasn't enough, so they need more services.
Okay.
But we see all types of, a lot of trauma that our adolescents and families have experienced and been exposed to that requires the more intensive work, and which also oftentimes leads to substance abuse. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So how necessary? I mean, that is a shame. That seems like the kind of thing that would happen more and more often now. How
Right.
is it necessarily the case? How do you help here when they get them to, when the parents do bring them to here to Insight?
Yeah. So what makes our program, I think, unique is that we see the whole family
Okay.
as our patients. Oftentimes, parents will take their teens to a program and say, "Here, fix my kid."
Oh, jeez.
Right? They have these behaviors going on, or
Here, just flip the switch.
flip
Just
the
go like this
switch, and
one.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
right. And so what we're looking at here is the whole system, the whole family system. And so while the adolescents are here, most of the time the families are doing work as well, and how they have contributed to the dynamics, whatever is going on with their teen. So oftentimes they come in thinking, yeah, we're all in. We're gonna do whatever it takes. We just want our teen to get better.
Okay.
But then when they realize the intensity of the work, because it is very intense, um, then they realize, wow, this is a different kind of a program than.
Oh, wow. Okay, so just so clear. Okay, so you're telling me that like parents will be like, okay, we've tried something else. Ah, that didn't work. Insight sounds good. Let's go to Insight. We take the kids, and they're like, okay, and you say, hey, we're treating the whole family.
The whole
It's not
family.
just the kids. We're
Right.
treating everybody. And the parents are like, we're into this. And then after a week, they're like, wow, this
Wait a
is
minute.
more than we thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. So I mean, I'm fascinated now to hear you say that. So okay. So let's say that happens. What I mean, what usually happens then? I assume it's you kind of the parents start coming to some of those meetings or some of that stuff that you were talking about, or you got to kind of work with the parents, or what happens?
All
then?
of the above.
Oh.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, yeah. So we get right in there with
Okay.
them and just really start to tackle some of the underlying things that are going on. Right. So oftentimes, again, they'll say, "Well, my kid isn't going to school. They're smoking marijuana. They're isolating in their room,
Gotcha.
and then come to realize through therapy and the parent group meetings and multifamily group that it's much deeper than that. And oftentimes these things have started due to unaddressed issues related to the teen themselves that parents may or may not be aware of for themselves and within the family system.
Gotcha. Okay, I got to say, as someone that's new that just started learning this from having worked with you and some other places in the space, that you just touched on the thing, which to me was always the most surprising thing about learning about the treatment and all that kind of the IOP thing is the underlying issues that
Yeah.
it really is not just about. If you could please say more about that, because that was always so fascinating to me, because I'm
Sure.
just think like, okay, the symptoms, we're going to attack.
Let's
the
just deal with the symptoms.
Right, exactly. That's
Right.
the thing that's bothering us. Why are we not dealing with that? But
Right.
it's really something else entirely.
Yeah. So again, what makes us unique? A lot of IOPs, intensive outpatient programs, are short term. They're 2 months, 3 months, maybe 6 months, which are very few and far
Yeah, I was
between.
gonna say, I hadn't heard one of those.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So again, ours is extended so that we have the time and the opportunity to dig into those underlying issues. It takes time. Like most people don't even know what those underlying issues are for a period of
Yeah, how could
time.
they?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if they're using substances, they're
Oh, geez.
using substances to just numb those feelings and not have those emotions.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, adults don't even have the language to identify their feelings, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
they're either happy or mad,
Right.
maybe sad, right?
If they're aware of that at all.
If they're aware of that.
I'm irritated. I'm hungry. I haven't had
Right.
enough caffeine. Yeah.
And so getting to those underlying layers. So if, like for an example, we might have a teen who is dabbling in, drugs, maybe some, let's say, gang activity.
Sure.
And the parents are focused on that, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
oh my, rightfully so, right? I'm
Totally.
terrified. My kid's gonna turn out to be this gangbanger, drug addict. And they're focusing so much on those exterior issues that sometimes it's surprising to them to understand once we get to the deeper layers why their teen is engaging in that kind of activity to begin with.
Yeah.
And so after digging and digging and digging, it might be I was just trying to fit in. And
Right.
that is it, right?
Yeah.
I was feeling like I didn't belong. I didn't belong here. I didn't belong here. But this group made me feel a sense of belonging. And so then families can start to, have some compassion or understanding of what was really going on with their teen rather than just focusing on the top layers.
Right. I mean, when you say that, it becomes so clear because then it's about something simple and profound. And
That we can all identify with,
exactly.
right?
Everyone knows what it's like to not fit in, to
Right.
feel like it's versus, whereas I could see a parent certainly dealing with that. I was thinking like, okay, my child joined the gang when there was either that or the honor club. You know what I mean? Like they
Right.
just took this wrong turn, but that's not what happened. It came for all of this comes from this kind of human
Deeper
place.
place, yeah.
And that makes so much sense. You address that, then you can get to the symptom eventually. But that's what has to be fixed.
Right.
Not fixed, but I meant
Addressed, yeah.
Yeah, addressed.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Once you say it that way, I mean, obviously that's simplifying it quite a bit
Right,
to get at the top
right.
there. But yeah, so that's awesome. How long have you been doing this? I mean, obviously, well, you come off as very well with this.
Oh,
So yeah.
thank you. Here at Insight 2.5 years, but I've been a therapist for, I don't even know how long that ages me.
Okay. But you can
20
tell the
something years.
experience. She doesn't have to give you she doesn't have to give you the numbers. You can tell this woman very good at this.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned I was initially struck by. I know this is a place that tends to deal with teens, and I was very struck by at the beginning when you said family and marriage therapist. Like, is that unique to this particular niche that you come in with it? Because I'm thinking the teens, whatever issues they may have, maybe not marriage necessarily the same things, but how does that inform what you're teaching now?
Right.
Not teaching, but doing now, because that seems like you would provide an even more unique perspective in this space.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's often confusing that our license title doesn't necessarily match with the work that many licensed therapists do. Oftentimes, marriage family therapists never work with couples, they work with adolescents or younger children or families. So, yeah, the title doesn't accurately describe the work that can be done under the license. Really, what marriage family therapists expertise is in relationships. So, and that can look many different ways. It's universal, right? Whether someone is 2 or 102. Yeah, so there's lots of different avenues that therapists can take under that umbrella.
Gotcha. I mean, I have to ask. Imagine something people might be wondering. It's like, okay, hey, what kid, what situation is a good candidate to reach out to Insight?
Sure. Yeah.
What should folks look for at, what's the thinking there?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're an intensive outpatient program that I think a lot of people aren't even aware that a program like this exists, because we know about regular once a week 50-minute on the couch therapy, right? We know about higher levels of care like hospitalizations.
Yeah, staying there all night. That
Right.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Our residential treatment where, like you said, they're living there for a period of time. We're in the middle there.
Gotcha.
So families that come to us are good candidates. Maybe folks who have tried the once a week, twice a week outpatient therapy and they're needing more support. Or they're coming out of a hospital or a residential treatment and need a lower level of care. That's not necessarily the only avenues, but those are oftentimes the families that come to us. We do an assessment to identify if they were the right fit for our program. But yeah, basically that's kind of like the general criteria to consider.
Sure. I guess following that same logic, like, okay, what's something, someone's thinking, geez, should I reach out to insiders? There like certain behaviors from the kids? I mean, what do you kind of see there where, like, okay, if the parent's watching this and sees or hears that, you're thinking, maybe I should give Carissa and them a call?
Well, good news about Insight is any family is welcome to call. Parents are welcome to call us regardless. And if we're not the right fit, we have a wonderful admissions team that will answer calls and steer folks in the right directions. We have lots of referrals and resources. But yeah, anyone's welcome to call if they're concerned about their teen.
Okay. I guess if you could talk, something I'd like to go back to. You mentioned about how, hey, people don't necessarily know that an option like an intensive outpatient exists. And I was thinking, as you were saying, that not only do they not know it exists, maybe they don't know necessarily it exists for teens and adolescents.
Right.
I mean, if you're watching this, I mean, we've got this like unique chest here, this very comfy couch. Like, this is a very different kind of vibe. If you could talk a little bit about just what, I mean, they're going to see pictures and videos of all this too, because we're going to have this in.
Right.
But yeah, if you could talk a little bit about what this place and these places are like, because they're so different than other rehabs.
Yeah,
And places
yeah.
that I've been to. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you see the pictures and the videos, you'll see that it's very teen friendly here.
Yeah.
Right,
But,
elephant in the room.
yeah. I didn't even
Right.
think of that. Yeah.
There's, an other part of our facility. It's a warehouse feel and vibe. It's welcoming to teens. We have video games. Some facilities have ping pong, air hockey, foosball. We have snacks. So
On
it's
the way up here, I passed like heavy bags.
Oh yes,
Boxing,
yeah,
too.
boxing. We do boxing here. It's really immersive, where it's not just therapy, like traditional therapy. We engage teens and families in other ways too, such as the boxing. Some sites have yoga. We have drumming. We have improv.
Improv. What kind of improv are we talking?
Yeah, so we have specialists who
Oh, nice.
provide improv groups for the teens. Just another way to get them
Oh, another creative outlet.
creative
kind of thing.
outlet to be able to express
Yeah.
themselves in different ways.
Uh-huh.
Some of our facilities have art therapists who
cool.
come. Um, so that's one of the ways that makes it unique. It's really inviting. We're very immersed with the families when they're here, meaning they don't just come here and then they're gone and we don't have communication with them until the next
Right,
day.
right,
We're very involved with them, including because they come here, whatever they've been doing at home hasn't been working, right? And it doesn't mean they're not doing their very best. Parents are always doing their very best. But we kind of change their whole program, including what happens at home. So we have something what we call home rules.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, please tell me about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So our counselors will help families come up with expectations and rules that the teens need to abide by. Oftentimes, families come here because the structure is way too loose or it's way too rigid. Yeah.
Wow, we got the same
We have the
word.
same word.
Yes. It was either that or structure.
Right.
I jumped on rigid, but okay, that's fascinating.
Yes,
Okay.
so we work with them on how to have realistic expectations for their teens. And then we oftentimes, if we suspect that the teens are involved in things that aren't safe, we check their phones. I mean, we're involved. We offer
part of the event,
intensive,
yeah.
right? It's intensive. I kind of sometimes say we're in their underwear. Metaphorically speaking. Metaphorically speaking. Yeah, so this is a place where they can rely on us for all the decision making related to their teen that has been difficult or challenging for them until they start to build that themselves and become more comfortable with not just saying, hey, that's an insight rule, or hey, Carissa said we have to do it this way. They become more comfortable with the structure and can implement it themselves. So,
Yeah. No, I love that because especially I was so struck by the end there when you used the words rely, build, and implement. I guess what I was thinking when you were talking about the families and all that, how you were talking about, hey, despite the best efforts of everyone in the homes, it hasn't necessarily been going as you would hope. And coming from a long line of procrastinators myself, I was thinking like, okay, and maybe this is one of those things that's different for everybody, but like when do the parents think, hey, this isn't going as we'd hoped in the home, and we should reach out to a place like this? What are some signs or something they should look for that think like, okay, because where's that point between we've let this go too far versus like jump? I don't think there is a too soon, but you kind of see what I'm saying.
Right.
But when is the time to be like, okay, we've reached
Rubicon
it,
here. Right.
Yeah, and we should reach out.
Yeah, like you said, there's not really a specific time, but like I said, if any parents feel like, we're struggling here and we don't know where to turn, we're concerned. Our teen is isolating. They haven't been themselves lately. Their grades are dropping. They're having panic attacks. They've been seemingly, they changed their friend group. Typical kinds of changes that might seem slight, And then maybe they've tried therapy, or they've tried implementing some different kind of rules and structure at home, and they're not seeing much change or benefit.
Gotcha. I see. It's like it doesn't sound necessarily like maybe this is the first option, but this is the one you go to after something else maybe didn't quite
Right.
go as you'd hoped.
Right, as it is intense.
Gotcha. Right.
And not everybody needs this level of care.
That
Right.
makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
too. That this right, this isn't the one. This is this is hey, maybe this is something else didn't work out. Then come give you folks a
Right.
call. Yeah, I mean, I just it was fascinating. I mean, obviously you're a natural for this, but maybe we've covered this already. But what drew you to this field, this life in the first place?
So I've always been drawn to working with adolescents and their families. I've worked in different capacities before Insight. And when I found out about Insight's program, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I need to be. And luckily, I have the opportunity to do it for several reasons. I feel like, for me, anyways, adolescents are at that sweet spot where you can have really deep conversations with them. They're moldable. They haven't quite gotten to the age where they're not going to make a whole lot of changes in their ways, right? They're just really fascinating, and their parents too, that are willing to put in some work and make changes. We have these. I was just sharing with our colleague that we have graduation ceremonies for adolescents and families who complete the program, and we had one last night, and it's just so meaningful. It's emotional, it's meaningful, and to reflect back on the previous year and how the family came to us feeling broken, or like this is their last effort at trying to implement some changes and help heal their child, and to see where they come after finishing the program is really quite remarkable. So
That's great. That's great. I could talk to you all day. I really could. This is fascinating. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to tell the people here?
I think just any time a parent is struggling with what do I do with, parents of teens feel that way anyways, right? It's hard to be a parent of
Right.
teens.
Yes.
And we think they're all crazy, right? And they all need mental health help. But if you have any questions, you're unsure, do not hesitate to call us. Because like I said, if we're not the right fit, we will help you find the right place.
Gotcha. And that number's and the website's going to go up here on the video, so they're able to see that. Well,
Great.
thank you so much, Carissa.
Thank
like I said, I could
you.
have said, I know I say this every time I learn something. I genuinely learned something here again. That was fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank
today.
you
I really
very much,
appreciate
Greg.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right. On behalf of Website Depot, my name is Greg Benevent. Take it easy. Have a good night.